Ooh,
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna change it from my earbuds to my speaker.
okay.
Oh, you were. Okay. Okay, talk some more.
Happily. Always happy to talk. Always happy to sing. Always happy to chat about
Can you
trans.
hear?
I can
Can
hear
you
Barry.
can you hear? No.
No.
Okay, let me try here.
I'm
Let me
sorry,
try here.
folks.
Okay, let me try it from here. So we're going to get feedback. Can you mute? Can you mute that? Okay, okay, try here.
There we go. Let's see if that's working. Let's do it. Okay. Boop, 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 boop. Da, da, da,
No,
da.
it's not working any better.
Is there like oh, because you're trying to get the sound over like a loudspeaker or something, right?
Yeah, we're not getting you clear. Sure.
Um,
Darn.
sorry.
Why? I'm trying to figure
Barry, what happens if you disconnect your Bluetooth from it?
disconnect it. Well, no, I can switch it to the other thing coming out of my speakers. That I can do, but it's not loud enough to pick up from these microphones that they gave us, these wireless mics.
Hmm,
That's what we're having trouble because we
got
gave
it.
we gave up on um okay. Yeah. Shoot. And that is I'm gonna attach my headphone right to the speaker. Now try speaking.
Happy to talk. We're doing a different type of sound check where Barry's headphones going directly into the speaker.
Okay, nothing is loud
Well,
enough.
could you, could we try to do it from its just directly from your computer speakers? Like if you just turn off your Bluetooth, I don't know if that would help.
Okay, well
And
I yeah,
I mean, at least just give it a shot.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Eventually.
okay. We will. We're not
We're
yet
connected
connected.
now, not louder. That's why.
Ah, how about this? Is this working? Try this type of audio.
We ask people to be quiet.
I don't know if that's sounding good or not.
Okay, we can, yeah, let's see if we can hear them.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carter Lavin. I'm with Trans Bay Coalition, talking with you all about what's happening with transit in Contra Costa County.
Settings all the way up.
See. Okay, Carter, could you say something?
Sure, everyone. I'm Carter Lavin with Trans Bay Coalition, here today to talk with you all about what's going on with the future of transit in Contra Costa County.
You can hear it?
That's it.
Is that good enough? Yeah. People in the back here?
Could
Okay.
people in the back get closer to the microphone, get cozy?
Okay,
We're going to have our business meeting first. Conversation.
yeah, yeah, okay,
It's a little soft.
yeah. Okay,
It's a
Carter, we're
little
gonna
so
have our business meeting first, so I'm gonna
okay.
change the
Sounds good.
yeah, hold on. Do you have the slides?
Yes, they're up there.
Share them.
Do it in a minute.
Having some okay.
All right, thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm Pam Jerizo. I'm president of Sustainable Rossmoor, and I'm happy to see so many people here to learn about transportation issues. We'll start with a quick business report.
This will be quick. Are you?
Oh, that we've got all those things in the White House.
Yeah, it's always like that. I see that.
Well, unfortunately, I can tell you what the numbers are being hit. Did you guess? No.
Yeah.
First one is just under $8,000. That's what we started. Memberships, we had $220 last month of memberships. And we had no donations. The expenses were $85. And we made no donations. So we ended up with $8,127.17. And so on the expenses, the $85, that's about the minimum we can run the club with, because it costs us about $78 a month just to keep the lights on for the website, because of the Club Express cost. And so, but that's about as simple as you're gonna see. Oh, now Barry's got you.
Thank you, Brad. But really, 7,000 only shows up at 7.
Susan, you wanna come up and do the membership report?
It's 7, 9.
7,999. Thank you.
That's the money.
You guys making it up.
Okay.
I know those numbers.
Okay. So, there's a little bit of a disagreement about the number of active members that we have. I am standing in for Jean Chu tonight. She couldn't make the meeting. And she told me we have 183. Okay, which is a rather large discrepancy. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, it's your fault, Carol? Oh, you're bad.
I have a suggestion. I think that there's a 3-month grace period. So those who have not yet renewed, but were active in 2025 are still considered active on Club Express.
I see.
And maybe Adrian, you can either confirm that or that. Okay. So that's why on Club
It's a
Express.
technicality.
Well, it's who's paid versus who's still not taken off the.
It's a timing issue.
Okay.
I have a slide about how to join.
So anyway, we are doing well with, this is kind of the best level of membership we've had in our history. So that's good news. So if you have not joined, this would be the time to do so.
Or renewed.
Or renew. Yeah, and you can see at the lists in the back whether you've renewed or not, in case you can't remember yourself, which would be my case.
Carol, you're up next.
I was getting that old. No, I was not. I don't know what I was doing wrong.
I think it was just you.
It had to be you.
Wanted to tell you about the films. You may know that as of last month, we started having 2 sustainable Rossmoor films a month, which means we have one on Monday, the first Monday of the month. So that was this past Monday, 2 days. Yesterday. It's been that kind of a week. Yesterday. And we had amazingly good turnout for this new group. So there are definitely people who like to come during the day. And a lot of the people who come as our regulars on Wednesday evening, also can be coming. So the film for next Wednesday is Singing Back the Buffalo. You can see that advertised there. You may have noticed the expense for this month was $85. That was totally for the film. This is an unusual film. It hasn't been released yet in the theaters. It comes from Canada. It's produced in Canada. It's actually about the Northern Plains in the United States as well as Canada. And about once a year or twice a year, we have a really expensive film. And this is the one for this year. So I think you'll find it worth coming to. It's one that you won't be able to get on any other streaming platform or a DVD or so forth, probably for at least another year. So please come to the theater and Peacock Hall next week, sorry.
Careful.
Yeah.
And then our Monday film next month is this film about the tale of Cillian. It's misspelled there. They didn't misspell it, did I misspell it? Anyway, so this is a film, we're showing films this month and next month about various aspects of how climate change and the environment, changes in the environment affects wildlife and their habitats. And so this one takes place in Macedonia, where the white swan is their bird, their national bird, and it has a very famous migration. Fantastic skies full of these huge white swans flying, which you'll see in the film, and they get confused and don't know what to do when climate change, and then some of them stay behind and are feeding out of the landfills. And a fellow who works in the landfill is that fellow there, and he adopts one of them, and it's got a broken wing and nurses it back, and they form a special bond. And that's partly what the film is about, because he has had a similar experience of his life in that climate change and the migration, and his life as a farmer isn't working, he can't exist as a farmer anymore, so he had to take the job in a landfill. So you'll get to see the parallels between the wildlife and the human life.
Thank you. Okay, legislative committee. Right now, basically, we're looking at all the bills that were introduced or have been introduced this start of the year and checking to see what it is we might want to follow. We don't have any bills yet, but we're going to be talking about some new ones at our next meeting. We've moved our meetings to the third Thursday of the month. They're at 2:00 in the afternoon, and they're in a private residence. It changes from time to time. So if you're interested in legislation and you would like to join, let me know. You don't need to know anything about the process. We can teach you everything you need to know, and we're always looking for new members. Friends of Tice Creek, Don.
Thanks. Hello, my name is Don McGregor. I am the co-chair of Friends of Tice Creek. We're inspired by Walnut Creek Open Space Foundation. Walnut Creek is blessed with over almost 3,000 acres of open space. And so we are following their model of restoring habitat to nurture wildlife. Our proximity to Mount Diablo, as well as the Las Trampas Wilderness is part of what makes Rossmoor unique. Friends of Tice Creek is meeting every other month in a regular business meeting, and we're doing hikes on alternate months. We're going to do a creek hike Monday, February 16th. We'll meet at 9 a.m. Behind Gateway, close to the Gulf Bridge, behind Peacock Hall. And we welcome you to join our hike. It'll be a moderate hike because there are some places close to the creek where we'll be visiting. And if it's raining, there will be no hike, but only if it is currently raining. Friends of Tice Creek is also planning a bio blitz in April, and we'll be doing an inventory of living organisms close to Tice Creek, and little swimming things, crawling things, and walking things, and some flying things. We're a group that collaborates with other groups, and with the garden club, we hope to be doing a collaboration and doing a pollinator garden as well coming up. This is something that we're working on. So we are advocating for a comprehensive plan for the replacement of bridges on the golf course here. This is a project that's being undertaken probably for the next decade, but we're advocating for habitat restoration as well as the bridge replacement. And this is important. The valley that we live in is a fragile environment, and there's a lot of people living in here, and we're protecting the biodiversity, and we welcome you to come join us.
Could you just repeat where you are meeting on February 18th?
Sure.
February 16th.
Thank you.
February 16th, 9 a.m. behind Peacock Hall. There's a parking area there, and there is a bridge at the golf course. It's behind Peacock Hall at Gateway.
All right,
And
thank you.
we'll leave at 9 a.m. Yes,
If you know where the wood shop is, it's on the back
Yes.
side of the wood shop.
Yes, thank you so much.
Hi.
Approximately how long is the hike?
an hour to an hour and a half.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Susan.
So I'm Susan Harris, Vice President, which I didn't say before. Usually when I report on green finance, I just tell you to go to the website and check out the resources that will help you green your finances. But I decided to do something different tonight because I found this chart and I thought it was really interesting, and so I'm sharing it with you. These are the banks that are enabling US oil companies who are set to profit from Venezuela. We all know what has happened there recently.
I love that idea of the Democrats, protesting.
So, take a look here. The biggest offender by far is Bank of America.
It's probably obscured by the Zoom, but is it the units, is it billions of dollars, or do you know?
Whatever.
As opposed to $10?
I believe it's billion,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
And JP Morgan Chase is second and Citi comes in third. They kind of are vying for second place. And you can see the other banks that are there. Wells is farther down. But look at all the international banks. I mean, it's not just US banks. So this is going on with our money, people.
Yeah.
This is the big message here. It's worth changing where you bank
Yes.
because your money, according to what Carol put on the website, $24 of every $100 that the banks loan go to fossil fuel infrastructure. If you can believe that, that's the scale. So anyway, that's my report this month.
Well, and I did close down my Bank of America account last year and move all my money into my credit union. So I took it all to heart, Susan. I'm paying attention. We want to thank Amanda Casey for bringing the wonderful planet-friendly snacks tonight. It's really a great service. Thank you, Amanda. And now Carol.
Yeah, well, we want to set up next. We also are hoping someone volunteers for the next meeting.
Yeah, that's right. We always look for volunteers.
Is there anybody right now in the audience that thinks they would either co-help or in some way contribute to the planet-friendly food next meeting? Thank you. 2 people, great, thank you both. This is so that you could vote about pizza. I knew that's why you came tonight. As a part of the Earth Day Planning Committee, we're considering having vegan pizza be one of our options. We're not gonna make it complicated and fancy, not having several options. But one of the restaurants, the Scipio's restaurant in Broadway Plaza, is vegetarian and vegan. And I think their pizzas are out of this world. And a couple of people I know in our group said, everybody likes pizza. I don't know if that's true. So I want you to vote. These are what the chef there says are the top 3 choices that people that eat in the restaurant choose. The spicy eggplant, or just sort of a cheese pizza that's tomato and basil. And the last one, which is my favorite, is the mushroom.
Don't sway the people.
And so you get to vote for 5 different things. Which pizza you choose if you were gonna eat pizza. The 4th vote is you don't eat pizza, but thank you very much, no thanks. And the last is you don't really care, you'll just have whatever's left over. So how many people would raise their hand as possibly ordering the spicy eggplant? Okay, so we have 4, and basil tomato, please. Okay, that is popular, my friends. Plain old cheese pizza. And I was with somebody in the group who ate that and just loved it. Anyway, and mushroom pizza. Good. I've got several compatriots here. And how many people not gonna have pizza but thanks anyway? Okay, and don't care which kind of pizza you have, you're just gonna have what's there. Okay, so pizzas went over better than I thought it would. That's partly why I did this. I wasn't just doing it to be funny. I was really wondering if anybody would really be interested, so thank you.
Especially if you have with vegan beer.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Susan, do you want to introduce our speaker for tonight?
So let me just ask a quick question. How many of you have relied on public transit at some point in your life?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So I lived in North Oakland for almost 40 years. And I was in walking distance of actually 2 BART stations, but one was closer. I can't tell you how many times I rode BART. And even today now, living in Rossmoor, I rely on BART for a lot of things when I want to go to the city, because I don't want to drive to the city and park and, oh my God, right? So I was terrified to hear that BART might be cutting its services back to the degree that would have happened. By the way, and I'm sure Carter's going to tell you about this, although it wasn't in his slides, his organization has just won a short-term loan that will tide us over until we can get this ballot initiative passed and actually avoid the most serious cuts that are coming. And by the way, it's not just BART. We're talking regional, and including our local little Contra Costa stuff. So anyway, I got really excited and I attended one of his Trans Bay Coalition webinars, and I was really impressed with him. I said, I gotta bring Carter here to speak. So anyway, that's why I'm here tonight. I would be up the creek without Bart here. And I don't mean Tice Creek. Okay. So let me formally introduce Carter. It is my great privilege and pleasure to introduce Carter Levin. He is the co-founder of Trans Bay Coalition, a grassroots transportation advocacy group that works toward a better bay for all. The group, along with its allies, has helped win over $1 billion for vital funding for transit and numerous transit improvements at the local level throughout the 9-county Bay Area. He also, and I found this out later on, also helps organizations and individuals hone strategy and build political power. He has directly supported and trained nonprofits, candidates, grassroots groups, businesses, and hundreds of individuals to win on the issues that matter to them at the local, regional, and state level. The reason he's not here tonight is he lives in Sacramento, where he can really do his thing. Yeah. He is the author of the book, If You Want to Win, You've Got to Fight, a guide to effective transportation advocacy. Carter, over to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Susan, for having me and all at Team Sustainable Rossmoor. Also want to do a quick audio check with Barry. How do I sound? I realized I had a much better speaking setup. So like, oh, I should have probably thought about that sooner. Mhm.
You're good. You're
Great.
good, Carter. I think, can everyone hear? Yeah, they can hear you.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, it's so exciting to talk with you all. This is, I've actually years ago talked to Sustainable Rossmoor when I was working in the solar industry. So it's fun to be back here in this capacity. And we're going to talk about what's happening with transit in Contra Costa County. So as Susan said, I'm co-lead Trans Bay Coalition. We're throughout the 9-county Bay Area. And there's a lot of hands that went up when they talked about people who rely on transit, who have it before. But I always like just level set of like, why do we even talk about transit in Contra Costa County? Like, why does this matter? And I'm assuming folks see my slides. Barry, can you give me a thumbs up on that? Cool, great.
Yes.
So first off, the majority of people in the Bay Area take transit, are transit riders, and some that might mean, the people who take it every single day to go to work or to get groceries, to go to the doctors. That might include people who take it to go to a ball game or who have family in town. They go, uh, you know, take it wherever. But that's the majority. Like when we are talking about transit in the Bay Area, we are talking about something that impacts directly the majority of people. And transit affects everyone else because every person who takes transit reduces traffic congestion, reduces parking competition, and of course, reduces air pollution. So when we talk about transit in Contra Costa and the Bay Area as a whole, we are talking about everybody. Whether you use transit or not, you prefer when I'm not driving very poorly in front of you or cutting you off to grab the parking spot at the Trader Joe's, you prefer when I'm on a bus, even if you yourself are never on one. And one thing that I always like to talk about is, as a reminder, when we talk about climate change, and this is the greenhouse gas emissions in California by sector, which you all as a crew are probably pretty familiar with. This probably might, for some people in this room, may not be the first time you've seen a chart like this. Uh, but the short version is when we talk about climate change and where that's coming from in California, over a third are coming from transportation sources. And within transportation, the vast majority of that is coming from what they call passenger vehicles, aka cars. And that's like nearly 30% of all climate pollution in California comes from cars. And so as a point of comparison, like agriculture is 8.1, electricity is 15. Like, it is good to fight climate change on every front that we possibly can. However, as we just see from the numbers, if everyone, goes vegan and generates their own power through solar and still drives a gas car, like we aren't solving the biggest part. And so when we talk about transit, we're also talking about climate. Um, and not to mention also all the local air pollutants, asthma-inducing, fine particulate matter, all that kind of stuff. The MTC, the Metropolitan Transportation Committee, which is like this big regional transit governance board in the Bay Area, is coming out with a study very soon about the specifics on the climate impact of transit in the Bay Area and how much carbon emissions avoidance we have. But I chugged some numbers with some folks, so I would not tattoo this anywhere. But based on our numbers, we're looking at 400,000 metric tons of CO2, which once again, as many of you know, when we talk about metric tons, like that's a big number, always hard to grok. The way I like to think of it is a forest the size of about Contra Costa County. That if from a climactic standpoint, if you said, okay, well, we're going to get rid of all the transit in the Bay Area, get everyone to cars. If we want to climactically even out, we need to plant a forest about the size of Contra Costa County, which, we should do anyway. But just to help kind of get this sense of like how big is transit, because I think when we watch the documentaries, when we see the things, a lot of times, and maybe this is me showing my age as a 37-year-old, a lot of times you show the coal power plants. In California, we've collectively done a good job killing coal. It's really cars, it's the big pollutants. Taking a step back, for those of you who might be less familiar with the abundance of transit in Contra Costa County, Contra Costa County is served by AC Transit in the west side, BART, obviously, the West Cat, which is kind of Hercules, Pinole, Richmond. There's County Connection, the Central County, and then there's Tri-Delta. So Contra Costa and also Soul Trans from Solano County comes in, and there's the ferry that comes in. So Contra Costa County has like a lot of transit. Transit gets you pretty much, it gets you to a lot of the places you need to go in this county. And as I mentioned before, people take transit for all sorts of things. Almost 1 million transit trips are made in the Bay Area every day. Half of those are for work. And so the other half is for everything else that a person does and people do. So there's school, there's errands, there's shopping, and then the data from the MTC, they call it recreational. Just to clarify, this is not joyriding and Susan and Barry being like, woo, let's go on a bar and just like party up. This is like people going to meet up with their friends or things like that. If you go to see a play at the Orpheum and you take BART, that would fall under recreational. Although, it's fun to be on it too. And so when we're talking about this and we're talking about who takes transit, particularly in Contra Costa County. Just to I realize this graph's a little complicated, but when you look at who takes transit in the Bay Area, the majority of people in the Bay Area make, as like family households, make over $150,000 a year. That is a wild stat. Um, and but that is when we're talking about who's in the Bay Area in that. However, when it comes to transit riders, whether we're looking at BART or County Connection or WestCat or all these things, the people who take transit, the people who really rely on transit, these households are people who are making under $50,000 a year. That's people on fixed incomes. That is people who are making minimum wage. People who are marginally employed. Um, Barry, you're moving around. Can you folks still hear me, or did you lose me on an audio? Thumbs up. Barry, you're muted. Uh, Barry or Susan, do you have me still? Or? Okay, thumbs up. Great. I'm not hearing the thunderous roar of laughter or applause for the line, so you always have to kind of guess. Um, but so when we're talking about who takes transit, we are talking about working class people, regular folks, you know, lower income communities. And we're also talking about people who like do not own a car. So when we talk about transit cuts, this is people who are generally speaking in a rough spot if that happens. And that's a lot more cars that get on the road because these are folks who are going to either not go where they need to get to, or they're going to have to find the cheapest, jankiest car that they could possibly afford. Um, and then, oh, and I mentioned that, so people take transit for all sorts of reasons throughout this county. However, as Susan mentioned, transit agencies are in a really tough spot. The four big agencies in the five county Bay Area, BART, Muni, Caltrain, AC Transit, two of which directly serve Contra Costa, they serve 80% of all the riders in the region, and they're all facing massive budget issues. And what this looks like, just to take BART for example, they're looking at no weekend service at all. BART is looking at stopping service after 9 p.m. on weekdays, which means if go into San Francisco, have a dinner, go to a show, something like that, and you're trying to get back, you better be on that train leaving Civic Center or Montgomery at 9 p.m. They're looking at closing potentially a dozen stations, which Contra Costa County particularly has a lot of stations, and that's probably going to get hit really hard. And during the weekday, trains once an hour. That is real bad is a short version. That when we're talking about that, like that is something that totally upends people's lives. AC Transit's looking at 37% service cuts. We've gotten some unofficial numbers from County Connection from the central thing, but basically they're looking at like a slow decline in service if they don't have new funding. And particularly for Rossmoorites, one thing that's like really important to consider is when transit goes down in the Bay Area, and particularly BART, uh, folks on the east side of the Caldecott Tunnel really feel that pain. That BART moves a lot of people from East County to West County or into the Inner Bay. And without this service, transit is going to be, or traffic would be absolutely garbage on the Bay Bridge and in the Caldecott Tunnel. And in a lot of communities in kind of that Orinda and like that feed-in area, that means there's going to be a lot more local traffic too, as folks just get kind of clogged up there. So we're looking at a lot more time spent in traffic, burning gas, waiting around. And obviously, if people can't get where they're going, that's really bad for the economy too. And life just gets more expensive. That cars aren't free. Just kind of a nice reminder. Cars aren't free. Gas is not. Is not. Prices aren't going down. Insurance is really expensive. I just had to take my spouse's car in to get a minor repair that was $300. Like just getting more people into cars is more expensive for absolutely everybody. The good news is we have a ballot measure we are working to get passed. This ballot measure is called the Connect Bay Area Measure. It includes the five large Bay Area counties. So that's Contra Costa, Alameda, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara. It would raise about $1 billion a year each year for the next 14 years, which means not only are we preventing these massive cuts and raising some money for service improvements, which we'll talk about in a second, this is doing so for 14 years, which means we get to go beyond this perpetual state of crisis to a place where, okay, now there's a lot more stable funding. We know what's going on, and it becomes a lot easier to invest in all sorts of other things when you aren't starving to death as an agency. Very importantly, this funds all transit operations in all of these counties. So to take County Connection, for example, like we don't have to do a County Connection ballot measure. This is all the agencies in this. So County Connection, Tri-Delta, WestCat, this is not just BART, this is all of these agencies. And what this will fund is transit operations, which means preventing these cuts and improving things like safety and cleanliness. Like any maintenance costs on BART or a person with a mop, that is paid for out of a maintenance budget, an operations budget. This is going into that type of thing. So when folks complain about serious issues around like escalators or elevator repairs, things like that, like building a new one is capital, but repairing it is operations. And then this program will also continue the fare discounts for START and the Clipper 2, which has that discount on transfers between agencies. There's also a little bit of capital project improvement for some specific counties. We could talk about more if someone wants to get really in the weeds. And this is done through a half-cent sales tax in 4 of the main counties, and then in San Francisco, it's a 1-cent sales tax, mainly because San Francisco's Muni is in particular trouble. They also need a local measure passed for Muni specifically because Muni is in a lot of trouble. And so this would, depending on how you like to slice it, if you are someone who's making minimum wage or something around that, you're probably going to be spending about $8 a month more in the sales tax. However, your financial saving just from the fare programs alone, the Clipper Start alone, more than pay for itself. And once you start factoring anything else like the climate benefits or the benefits of not having to get a car, any of that stuff, this more than pays for itself for pretty much everybody. To give some fun Contra Costa County specifics, so the big agencies get a bunch of money. However, the smaller agencies get a lot of money too. And relative to them, it's about a 10%, 11% increase in funding for WestCat, Tri-Delta, County Connection. The nice thing, they haven't put out there like whole stats of what service increase that could do. But a nice thing about bus service particularly is it is something that relatively scales up with funding. So you pay them 10%, you get 10% more funding into bus service, you get 10% more service. Generally speaking, there's a couple of asterisks, but it's not like rail where there's big fixed costs. So we are also looking at an amount of service improvement for County Connection that you would notice. Additionally, the Contra Costa County Transportation Authority, which is like the central body there, would get an additional $26 million to allocate how they want in flexible funding as it relates to transit stuff. And that could be, they could spend that on things like improving paratransit or building better transit infrastructure so that your bus never waits at a red light, things like that. Or they could also just send that directly to the agencies to run more service. So for Contra Costa County, say that a bunch of times. For Contra Costa County, we are looking at anywhere from 11 to a 30% increase in operations funding for bus service, which is huge. That is, don't, not to be exactly quoted on this, but like going from a bus every hour to a bus every 45 minutes or a bus every 40 minutes is pretty massive change, or a bus every 40 minutes to a bus every 30 minutes is a big change. So when we're talking about this stuff, this is, I know right now it's just numbers on a screen, but this is like the difference of, okay, I'm catching the bus at the station or I'm this stuff like, and I missed the one. How long am I waiting here? Oh, it's just another couple of minutes. That's not so bad. And then the other agencies also get their money, this as we could talk about. And then, of course, none of this is a blank check. This all comes with a lot of oversight committees, all that kind of stuff. So it's not just saying, hey, County Connection, here's your check, go have fun. Like there's a lot of regulations going into this, a lot of watchdogs, things like that. So we know the money actually goes to where it's supposed to go. And then lastly, this effort is supported by Trans-Bay Coalition, Transform, a lot of transit advocacy groups, obviously, as well as the Contra Costa County Building Trades and the Contra Costa County Labor Council, so many C's, and the Alameda County Label Council, sorry, as well as the SEIU, as well as Bay Area Council, who generally, um, it's great seeing them in unions on the same side. A lot of county supervisors, the mayor of Concord, a lot of people are coming together. It's a very Big Ten opportunity. A lot of environmental groups involved, bike groups, things like that, housing groups. And so we'd love to have one, Sustainable Rossmoor endorse the campaign. That'd be absolutely wonderful. You're all also people who talk to people. You have a lot of members. You have a lot of members who talk to a lot of people. We'd love your help getting the word out because we need to collect 200,000 ballot signatures. Like right now, probably they wrapped up by now, but earlier today, we had a crew of volunteers at the Walnut Creek BART station collecting signatures. And we need to just be out there in the field, in the world, collecting signatures, talking to people about this. So we help make sure this passes. So that was me talking at you all a whole lot. I'd love to hear whatever questions you have. If you have any questions, our email address is there. And yeah, with that, I'm happy to pass the mic and do some Q&A. Thank you. Oh, and you're muted. I see lips moving from Susan, but I cannot hear Susan or Barry. Can someone? You all are muted, so I can't hear your questions.
Okay,
Oh,
go
there we
ahead,
go.
go ahead. Go ahead, go ahead. Can you,
hear me now?
Now I can hear him. Mhm.
Okay, good. I can also hear me. Echoing there. Anyway, at Rossmoor, we have our own small transportation system.
Mhm.
We're reviewing it in some detail at the moment. One of the things that shows up is that 94% of our cost is labor.
Mhm.
And that's true of all public transit. That the cost is mostly associated with labor. We're seeing the rise of autonomous vehicles these days, particularly in this area. And that could really change the way we deliver transit. Because if you had vehicles that were just running up and down the road every 2 minutes, every 5 minutes, it would make it a lot easier for you to choose to use transit. And perhaps that could be affordable. Are you guys doing anything about that? Are you thinking about that? Are you trying to somehow encourage that transition?
Yeah, I would say that's a great question. A big thing is we are keeping an eye out on this because, so as you all know, or it sounds like you are familiar with, let's take San Francisco, for example. So San Francisco more or less said to the robot car companies, hey, go nuts. Like, feel free. Our city is your laboratory. Have fun with that. There is a lot of questions around corporate control and all that stuff. And did we all consent to? There's a lot, putting all that aside. One of the big things that we are seeing, though, is traffic is a lot worse in San Francisco now than it was before. We are seeing that these vehicles are not moving that many people, that there's a lot of I forget in the airplane industry you call it deadheading. I don't know if they call it something else, but like there's a lot of empty vehicles on the road moving around, which is one not a great thing from a safety perspective, not a great thing from a traffic congestion perspective, and also not a great thing from a climate perspective, moving around empty cars. And so I think we are definitely looking at this stuff. I think there's are obviously a lot of industries who are trying to make that work. I think, and we are curious to see how that math, if the maths. However, where we're seeing right now is, for example, at least a pre-pandemic number, during rush hour, more people were going under the bay than over the bay. That just simply put, cars are a very inefficient way of moving people compared to transit and things like that. And so the the robot car world is not ready to be a meaningful substitute to transit in the Bay Area. I think there's, to your point, there are definitely like opportunities of it as like a kind of frosting on the top for some areas. However, I don't I don't see that technology has proven itself yet. I think we're still very much on experimentation about that. And, I think that's still kind of a wait and see element of it. But if it does, as a technology, start showing itself to be able to put up huge numbers of moving people, we'll see, and that probably changes the conversation. But that is a very different thing of having a car that is empty, like has one other person in it sometimes, and then is empty for sometimes on a road, clogging traffic, and like the number of people we're moving. So I think wait and see on that one. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of eyes on that.
Susan next, and then John.
So I understand you have to collect over 200,000 signatures was a monumental task, but
Yep.
saying that you collect those signatures, is this considered a citizen initiative where you would
Yes.
require 50% only for approval?
50% plus one. If we get just 50%, we lose. Yes. But so we're collecting the signatures. This is a big region-wide effort. I think there's currently 1,000 volunteers signed up to collect signatures. I think of them, 200 are like actively collecting signatures. Um, and yeah, part of it is like bring on more people. And so, as part of hopefully your endorsement, like I know like I might have a hard time getting into Rossmoor sometimes. Someone might have to invite me in, but in an ideal world, like you might have some packets and getting you all up to speed on that or plugged into that. I think the other part about that 200,000 is, yeah, I've done a lot of advocacy on a lot of issues. Signature gathering to save transit has been one of the easiest things, politically speaking, I've ever done in my life. Um, and, you know, we're all climate and environmentalists here. I've had people walk by me when I've tried to pass some flyers about like, oh, hey, help protect any sort of ecosystem. People are like, I couldn't care less. But when people say, oh, Bart, like people have walked by me, kind of done the like, I'm not looking, please don't look at me, guy with clipboard. And then they said, oh, wait, you're talking about Bart. And they've turned around and signed it. So, um, yes, it is a large 200,000 is a big number. It is across all 5 counties, though. So that definitely does help. It is a multi-million region. And people really don't want transit to die. So it's nice. It's been nice.
John?
Assuming that this passes and get all this money, is there some kind of formula for distribution based on a cost benefit ratio of how much it costs to move a passenger 1 mile in this system versus that system or something?
Yeah. Yeah, let me pull that slide up, which my apologies, I kind of zipped through that one. So the short version is there's a lot of math and a lot of formulas and a lot of politicking done. That this to even be possible as a multi-county, multi-agency measure had to go through Sacramento and like get a law passed to authorize it. Otherwise, we'd be looking at every county doing a different measure or every agency doing a different measure, and that would be hard. Um, so the funding mechanism, the funding distribution is baked in, and it's basically a big mixture of things like one, need, two is, as you're saying, like dollar for dollar, like efficiency, how we're moving people. But the other part about that is making sure that money is going back to communities because, for example, to take Santa Clara County as an example, like they don't have a lot, like they don't run a lot of bus service. VTA is a fairly starved agency. Like they're facing cuts in the near-ish future, not the immediate future. But a big part is they're just not running that much service. And so rather than punishing them for saying, oh, well, you're not running that much service, therefore you don't get money, like they also get a big chunk of that. And so there is a bunch of equations. Here's all the math on the scale on the thing in front of you. And it's basically enough to close these gaps, largely speaking, for all these agencies, money for the small operators. So we're making sure none of those folks are left, you know, hungry just because they're not super loud. And then the regional entities, these like the Contra Costa County Transportation Authority, these entities who are also kind of ears on the ground very closely, they're getting a pot of money to distribute, based off of need. And so that's where the part where Contra Costa County Transportation Authority, my guess is they're going to be putting more money into things like paratransit and making sure paratransit works across these agencies because there's a lot of stuff there. And then one thing that might pop out, so Santa Clara County's Valley Transportation Authority, VTA is essentially their transit agency, so they kind of wear multiple hats, and that's why that entity as a county one gets a lot of money because it is a transit agency themselves.
Are there any metrics either written within is this an initiative? Yeah. Or by the entities that are organizing this, or by the agencies that say, what does success look like other than spending the money? I mean, are there actual goals for more ridership? Are there goals for, I think one area is with younger people, actually getting them really taking public transit, because so many younger people just don't take it. So how is success going to be measured, and will it ever be reported out other than spending dollars?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting. I don't think I've ever gotten that question before. So one major props to you on that. Um, I would say, and I did just put in the chat the link to the direct text of the measure itself. Um, I will say that, okay, yeah. This is the part where I'm a very talkative person and I'm trying to get better at when presented with such a big, meaty question, I'm trying to get better at shorter, more coherent answers. Um, Short answer is in the actual like legal text of the measure, it's focused on like how does the money get spent? Like that's in terms of like measures and all that stuff that we vote on, that is generally how that is. And the purpose that they talk about is like to prevent the catastrophic collapse of transit in the Bay Area, as well as provide improvements to service. Um, so from a like legal definition, that's what we're looking at. From a broader purpose, things like that, just double checking. Yeah, we're not being recorded. Oh, I am being recorded. Okay, so I will not name any particular names. Um, so for example, like Santa Clara County's VTA, they have what they call a visionary network plan. And it basically nearly doubles of transit service. This measure for them would, and by doubling that, like brings them up to the rest of our level. Like they are just so much getting less service than they should be. Um, this measure raises enough money more or less for them to implement that plan. However, transit agencies and politicians, they tend to not be so explicit. They're not activists. Like to your point, that is a very reasonable thing. And like, we come from the place of saying, okay, well, if we have it like from a climate perspective, what is the number of people that we need to be getting to leave their Ford F-350s at home and take the bus instead? Like you're right that climactically, that is how activists like us, like you and me, all of us, like how we talk about this stuff of like mode shift and all these things. The transit agencies themselves tend to communicate on like, hey, we're trying to increase service and increase ridership. From that, they don't tend to put out like a big pie in the sky number, which I'm being recorded. I'm fine to be on the record saying I find that personally frustrating. But that's like their government agencies and that type of thing. The state of California itself does have a bunch of goals that it talks about, like, oh, to get to a more stable climate, we have to do all these things with vehicle mile travel, which is car use, that's VMTs. Um, but that's not baked into this necessarily. So I think to your question, strictly speaking, no, there's not a like, hey, here's that type of thing. However, that is fairly typical in the transportation space that government agencies don't say, hey, we're trying to force people onto the bus because then people get very mad if you say stuff like that. So yeah, good question. I could get a better answer to that one day. Sounds like I should have a better answer to that one. That's a good question.
Brad first and then Joe, and then I'll bring it to you, Karen.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be a semi-simple question. Obviously, I've not read the text of the measure, but is there anything in there that either requires ideally or at least incentivizes the transit agencies to move to clean vehicles, either ferry, buses, whatever?
Yeah, so they actually, from a separate state policy, have that incentive or requirement of I forget what it's called, but it's ZEV, I believe. It's like so like bus. I mean, so BART's powered by electricity, so as long as the grid gets greener, BART and Caltrain are greening. But for county connection, all these bus agencies, there's state policy pushing them in that direction, and that's why we're seeing a lot more of like battery buses or hydrogen buses, and them like kind of experimenting with that. That is not baked into this because that's typically a capital expense. That's them buying a new bus, but that is in progress.
Couple of questions about the actual petition drive.
Mhm.
You say 200,000 signatures. Do they have to be registered voters? Do they have to
Yes.
live in the 5 counties?
Great. Yeah, so it has to be 200,000 people 200,000 people who are registered voters in any of the 5 Bay Area counties. It's not like an electoral college thing, so technically it could be, if everyone who's registered to vote in Contra Costa County and everyone registered to vote in Alameda County signed it, I think that's 200,000 people right there. Um, and that would get it on the ballot throughout all 5 counties. Similarly, with the passing of this, it just needs a majority, a 50% plus one vote across all 5 counties. So there's not a like, oh, Contra Costa voted for it and Alameda voted for it, but this other county didn't. It's like as long as across the 5 counties, it's a majority plus one, it passes. The other thing about the signature gathering, which is maybe less relevant to this crowd. You just have to be over the age of 18 to gather a signature. So we have a lot, and Trans Bay Coalition, we have a lot of teenagers who are volunteers. So I've been directing them to other activities because they cannot legally gather nor sign. But yes, as long as you are a registered voter in any of those 5 counties, you are able to sign.
I have a comment and then a question.
Okay.
I'll make the comment first. I've been following the high-speed rail organization that's, trying to get it going across the US, and had a really interesting piece about the relationship between frequency of trains and ridership. And I mean, it makes sense once you think about it, although it feels a little counterintuitive at the beginning. That in fact, the more often you run trains, the more people use trains, and it's not proportional. It's sort of, and it's I don't know whether to call it geometric or exponential or what it is, but it's not it's not a linear relationship. And so if you think about the reverse happening, if they start running fewer trains, you get a precipitous drop.
Yes.
If in fact that relationship holds, and it makes sense because nobody wants to go and sit on the platform, for a long period of time if they miss it, as you talked about. So I certainly understand the desire to tie things to precise metrics and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's some things that we know. If you run more trains, you will have more riders.
Yes.
And so anyway, that's about the metrics, and you can talk to that, but then I am going to ask another question.
Sure. Great. Yeah, I'm going to talk to that before I get distracted. Yes, that's also just as true for bus service. And one key part about this that we've seen in Philadelphia recently had a bunch of service cuts. That also means that the trains and the buses that run are going to be even more crowded. And so when you start because if there's only a BART train once an hour, they might run slightly longer BARTs, but like all the people who are trying to take those trains on the other parts of it are going to try, like they have to get onto one train. And so that means it's more crowded. That means there's going to very likely be people left at the platform. Um, and to the other point, as you're saying, that when people are starting to live car light or car free because they say, oh, well, the bus is so frequent, I don't have to check my watch every now and then. I just know I'll be there and I'll show up and I'll be there eventually. And I'll be there pretty soon. Like that's when you get into that really good stuff. And we are seeing this in a lot of areas that, like, for example, a lot of the bus service and like a lot of service has because we have this kind of high quality service and it definitely could be better. We have a lot of ridership in the Bay Area, 1 million trips a day. There's nothing to sneeze at. And to keep getting to our climate goals, keep getting to our other sorts of goals, we need to make that better, not worse. So yes, you are right. And what's your question?
Yeah, so the other thing is, I did look at a longer slide deck of yours, and one of the interesting things in it was some of the improvements that BART has made already. And it brought up for me that the agencies, I think, have goals themselves
Yes.
for improving things. And, and they have ridership goals and they have, safety goals, cleanliness goals and all that. And I think
Yeah.
it'd be really kind of cool if you showed those slides, but I guess my question is, since that is the case, maybe it doesn't need to be in the funding measure. If you're funding the agency and the agency has the metrics, then maybe we have the metrics. Is that correct? Is that your...
Yeah, and I think also to that point, and sorry, and to that point, the thing that really matters is us all collectively holding these agencies to higher standards, which we are continuously doing. Like one of my favorite facts is like BART trains get wiped down not just every day, but like multiple times a day. And it's because people keep yelling at BART, hey, we want it to be cleaner. And now BART's a lot cleaner than, I'm not going to comment on the cleanliness of anyone's homes, but like BART actually does a lot of cleaning work because we say, hey, we want this. And that, there's never a point where we say, great, everything is fixed. Now we all get to sing Kumbaya and go off in the distance. Now we say, great, we want you to do these other things. And so, like, I think about this particularly for like elevators and escalator stuff, because that's just one of those places where, like, transit agencies, I think they have this goal of like a 95% uptime, which is great and it's huge and amazing. And you're like, yeah, but that means there's a thing busted at any time. And we always need to get loud. We always do that. But to your point about the metrics, I found the slide. So crime on BART is way down. So BART's a lot safer than it's ever been. A few years ago, I haven't done the stats recently. I double checked the numbers, and essentially, BART is safer than the communities it serves, which also makes sense that like anyone could be walking down the street anywhere doing anything, but like it is a self-selecting crew. So BART's a lot safer than it's been. People are a lot happier with BART, and the on-time performance is way up. And I think um, the other part about this is they've been doing great cleanliness. They have the new fare gates. There are all these kind of good things going on. And they've, to your point, someone asked earlier about labor costs, like there's been a lot of like pay freezes at these agencies. And so, look, generally speaking, these are people at these agencies are people who are trying their best to do what they can. And pretty much every complaint, almost every complaint that people have about transit in transit agencies is the fact that they are broke. Like any bit of like, oh, well, why is that bus shelter not repaired? It's like, well, because that costs money. Like all these things. Like the good news is they're just money problems, and the bad news is they're money problems. And so this is part of why we as Trans Bay Coalition keep doing the work of like holding agencies to higher standards, holding and like also bring in the resources so they can meet those standards. Because if we just say, hey, we want more service from you, but no money for it, they're like, well, then we're never going to run more service. It takes stuff to make us happy. So, and we're pushing on all fronts.
Don?
I am a big supporter of BART, and we are lucky here in Contra Costa County that the yellow line, I think, is probably the best line in BART. And there is the nicest agents in the BART stations in Lafayette, Walnut Creek, Pleasant Hill, Concord, and that's terrific. And one of the things that makes it enjoyable to take BART is the senior Clipper card, which is at least 50% off. And I hope that this is something which continues, but in this situation, it's certainly understandable. My issue with BART, and I have commuted on BART from San Francisco to Berkeley, and part of the reason of moving to Rossmoor from the city is the availability of the yellow line in particular. However, the enforcement issue, and I appreciate what you're saying about the safety, but there are rules posted in BART about behavior and what is against the law. But seeing BART police, there'll be groups of them, and sometimes they'll be on the platform, and this has changed quite a bit with COVID. But the enforcement is something that we wonder about. And I have to say that if you're a senior, if you're going with someone else, I think that BART is safe from in my experience with your someone else. But seeing the enforcement, seeing police regularly going through, I think is very helpful. And I was on a transit system on the East Coast, and it was even announced when police were on board, the driver announced that police were on board and available to answer questions or address concerns. And I think that was really remarkable. And that connection between police and the ridership was very important. Do you have anything to say about the enforcement?
Yeah, so there's like BART is actually one of the leading agencies in the nation, if I have it right, of what they're calling like the BART community ambassadors. Because I think you're like a core part to what you're talking about and what I see working with all sorts of community groups around the region is it is good when there is like someone who is in charge or someone who's there who has some sort of authority. Like, do they need to be a police officer with a gun and that kind of thing? Or does it just need to be like a person who could say, hey, feet off the sea and knock it off? And like the community ambassadors who are trained in de-escalation, like that's been a big part of why this has worked. Um, and there's a lot of elements of this. One is um, it takes different training. My understanding is it takes different training and it's less like it's a less expensive. Like police officers are very expensive and they're a very specific tool for the job. And community ambassadors are a lot less expensive. They've been so it's easier to deploy them and it's been working really well, which also does, to your point, like free up officers to do the stuff that only a police officer can or should be doing. But like as you know, it sounds like you're someone who's been on BART a lot. Like sometimes you don't need a police officer. Sometimes you just need someone just being there and being official and like having eyes out or saying, "Hey, looks like you're having a hard time. Do you need to get off at the next station? Let's talk." Or like just someone on Vibe Squad, so to speak, to use Gen Z parlance. Um, and it's been so successful. I think I saw actually earlier today or yesterday that Congresswoman Latifah Simon, who represents the East Bay or a lot of parts of the East Bay, is working on bringing that model nationally because you do get so much more bang for your buck, which is also, as we're talking about, like this is operations dollars. So that's part of the safety funding comes from operations. So that's part of what we're talking about here with that like extra pot of money. And lastly, like to this point, I think another key part about when we talk about transit, when we talk about safety is, as we're seeing by the stats, like statistically you're safer now on BART than you've ever been, or than you've been in many years. Statistically, you're safer on BART than you are in many areas that BART serves. However, very few people see a graph and say, "Oh, I feel better now. The line on the graph was facing this other direction. I feel 12% better." That's just not how that's not how it works. It's something I think about all the time is, and this is outside the purview of the measure, but just you asked me a question I think about a lot, is like safety is both very much a fact and it's also very much a feeling. And when we talk about what safety is on BART, that means so many things. I have a friend, for example, who has a little kid, and for them, safety on BART means they want those station platform gates. They're like, I have to hold my kid's hand because if I let go of my kid's hand, my kid wanders off. Like you could just fall right into the tracks. And they're like, that's their biggest, like, oh, I feel unsafe. Like this doesn't feel good. And so one thing at Transbay in general, we push on all these different fronts to say, how do we make this more inviting, easier, joyous even? This is why on Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, in the morning, we're hosting Make a Friend on Transit Day, just to kind of help remind people like, hey, that stranger that you don't know, like that, Barry, I'm just seeing Barry's name, so that's why I'm calling you out so much. Like, someone might be like, I don't know who this Barry guy is. Look at him with his glasses. What's he looking at? And you're like, oh, that's Barry. Like, and I think a big part is how do we create transit? How do we make transit feel more welcoming and supportive and good? Because there are some people who, um, uh, they don't feel safe anywhere, and that's a shame about their own personal nervous system setup. And it's like, okay, how do we help more people feel this way? So yes, to your point, there is a level of policing. Yes, to your point, there's also the ambassadors, and that's to me, I think just the tip of the iceberg and like all the things that we can do to make transit a more welcoming place. Because as you talked about, like the station agents, there's all these people who just help make this feel better. And lastly, um, the safety goes up when there are more people on stations. Like the time when personally, just a very large white guy in 37. The times when I feel like less great, it's like, okay, now there's one other person on train. Like I feel fine when it's like a crowded bus or whatever. When it's like me and one other person, that's the part where like I feel less great now. So getting more people on transit by running the more frequent services we talked about is also a key part to safety. That is my short answer on that. I have a whole longer answer that I will spare you.
I have two questions. First, I want to say, hi, Carter. I rode with you on a bus with RBK last summer.
Oh yeah, hey.
I think you were getting her vote for the ballot measure.
Yes, and we won. We did it. Thank you.
I confronted her with her support for make polluters pay, and wasn't quite as successful. But in any case, two things. When is the signature gathering deadline? And the other is, I think hydrogen power for public transit in urban areas is an incredible waste of energy. I would like to hear another point of view if you have it.
So deadline for signature gathering is June. We are trying to get it all in by May because there's basically this whole part where you have to like double check every number and signatures and someone's handwriting is a scrawl. And so like the last thing you want to do is do all this work and find out that you're 2,000 short or something. So we're internally like just trying to get it all in like kind of mid-May, by mid-May. So that to the hydrogen point, this is not the Connect Bay area. This is just me talking as Carter and Transbay. You're right. So I apologize. You asked for a different opinion. I share your opinion. I do agree that um, hydrogen has so far not shown itself to be a better bus technology. Um, I think we definitely have more space for batteries, and I think also at the end of the day, at the what's the stats? Like the cleanest a bus that is full, even if it's diesel, is like still way better than a car. But I think battery technology has come a long way, and I think bus service is pretty good for it. There's to spare the crew here, there is this like gigantic asterisk about the question of, but what type of routes is the bus running? And I will leave that to more technical people because basically it really matters. Is it a very long route, like a county connection service that goes from Walnut Creek to Dublin Pleasanton through the San Ramon Valley? Like that has different technical needs than other things. Um, but generally speaking, yes, hydrogen, as the Sustainable Rossmoor crew probably knows, is often done through refining natural gas, which is still a fossil fuel. So if we're going to go through the whole effort to change what fuel source our vehicles use, I think it'd be nicer to use a cleaner source. But that is capital, not regional measure.
Thank you so much.
Well, let me just say that if you're needing an incentive to ride any sort of public transit, go to 511contracosta.org, where if you can show that you rode BART, bus, or the ferry, you can be entered in a drawing to win $511, and they have drawings every week. The more you ride,
Nice.
the better your chances. So check it
Wow.
out, 511contracosta.org.
That's a great deal.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carter. This was great.
Yeah, I did have a question.
Very nice question.
Sure.
So I noticed on the chat, you gave two links and
Yes.
either I can put them up or you can put them up. I just want you to explain what they are and whether there's any action that you want us to do with them.
Yes, thank you very much for that. So first and foremost, the thing that we really need is more groups endorsing. More groups saying, yep, we think transit is good and it would be bad if transit died. We support this. So the first link I put in the chat is the Connect Bay Area form, and we'd absolutely love to have Sustainable Rossmoor publicly declare its support for this. So I don't know if that's someone makes a motion or how that goes, but
Yep.
that'd be a
We'll
great
have
place to start.
We have a
Seeing it, connect, what?
We have a steering committee meeting next week. We'll put it on the agenda for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll say, yeah. Okay.
Great.
And the other one?
Oh, the other one was someone had asked about the text of the measure, so I put that link out. That has the text. But that's also on connectbayarea.org. And then obviously after endorsement or as part of that, we'd love to have you all be involved with the billion events and signature gathering, or invite us into Rossmoor, or tell your story online, or any of that stuff. So the nice thing is you're a very sophisticated crowd. You know what political campaigning looks like. We'd love your help.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carter. We've learned a lot. We look forward to finding out more about your initiative when we go look at the petitions, and we appreciate your spending your time with us tonight.
Of course. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Okay, our next meeting will be March 3rd. We'll be back here in the club room. Thank you all for coming.
Okay, Carter, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
It worked out. You came through very clearly.
We did it.
I can send you a link to the recording if you're interested, but you're such a good articulate speaker, you probably don't need it.
I already have my notes of what I need to do better next time. I'm going to spare myself the cringing of
Sure.
watching myself speak, but thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna end the Zoom now.
Sounds good. Cheers, team.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care.